More than 80% of AI projects fail. You want to know why? The AI is missing context, and it makes stuff up as a result. You need two things to fix this. An AI brain with all the proprietary information from your company. I have a full video on this, so I'll link it in the description. But second, you also need to give eyes to your AI brain. Real-time awareness that comes from scraping fresh, live data from the internet. And that's what this video is about. I've been doing scraping for 15 years, and today I'm giving you my entire scraping playbook. Tools, the workflows, and all the tricks I use to make AI hyper-personalized, actually useful, and impossible to ignore. And even if you're not using AI yet, this will help you scrape anything on the internet. So stick around until the end because the tricks at the end will blow your mind. The problem is that AI is only as good as the data you feed it. And when it doesn't have enough, it hallucinates. It makes confident guesses that lead to bad answers or bad decisions. If you want specific, relevant, high-converting output, you can't rely on ChatGPT's training data. It's outdated and generic. You need fresh data. Live signals like job openings, new feature releases, social media posts, that's where scraping comes in. It turns your AI from a generic chatbot into a nosy researcher who's always up to date. All right, so let me do a bit of a demo here. So the first thing I want to clarify is what is scraping? So it's the actual ability to take a specific URL or a link and get the content from it in the shape of opening a virtual browser, or it could be via APIs. In this case, I asked to scrape a specific website and it returned some Markdown. So something that an LLM or ChatGPT or others would understand. So it's much easier for them to parse. You can do Markdown, you can do JSON. That's what it's really all about. So the first one that I want to go in detail about is actually Firecrawl. So Firecrawl is what I use for 99% of my scraping online. It is designed to be a bit of a broader one where you can scrape anything. They have a few features here. So you can do a single URL. So you just paste in the URL. You have a few options to only extract the main content. You can also go and look at PDFs. You can decide which output format. I'll go over that in a second. But yeah, the idea is you can scrape a single page, or you can actually crawl everything about a site. So anything from the main page to the sub pages, you can get all the content in one call with the crawl endpoint. You can also get all the URLs within the site. So it just looks at the sitemap. And then as of recently, they also have a search feature. So you can actually trigger a search on Google and scrape all those links automatically in one call as well. So very nice features that you can take a look at here. The second one that I use in the toolbox is Apify. It's sort of a marketplace for ready-to-use actors. What they call an actor is it's sort of a playbook that you can run against one given website. So you have an actor for Reddit, you have an actor for DuckDuckGo, you actually have multiple for each of them. But you can go into Google Maps, Apollo, TikTok, you can really scrape anything. Each has its own pricing and its own set of parameters. So it can all vary, but it is a very targeted approach, and it's doing a really good job at that. It's just that it's a bit more expensive. Firecrawl is extremely cheap. Firecrawl is, I think, $100 for 100,000 scrapes. For this one, it will depend on the actor. Sometimes you could just earn money very quickly with one actor. So yeah, here's a quick example of how that works. So I'm using this YouTube search API. So the cost of this one is pretty cheap. It's paid per result, so 40 cents per 1,000 results. So yeah, very cheap. There's plenty out there, and some you have to pay a flat fee on top of that, and that's where it gets very expensive. Sometimes it could be like $10 for 1,000 results. It varies a lot. So take a look at the pricing before going into that. And then they come with a set of parameters that you can completely configure. You can do it manually first, and then take a look at the JSON because that's what you need to pass in the API later. And if you run that, you get into the different runs here, and that's what it would spit out here. So I put Remi Taffin AI, and it scraped essentially the results that come up with that. So you see all the views, the likes. If you want to scrape specific keywords, this is a perfect opportunity. Again, there's plenty for Google, etc. It's a very good one. It's a very famous one, but very targeted approach as I've mentioned before. It's also very easy to plug in to N8N or Make, same as Firecrawl, but worth mentioning. And then the third one is SerpAPI. So SerpAPI is even more narrow, and we're going from broader to most narrow. This one is doing one thing really, really well with search engines only, and it's doing a really good job, and it's really fast and reliable. The reason I had to go with Serp is because there are sites that you will not be able to scrape with Apify or Firecrawl. So that's where I ended up with SerpAPI. It does a really good job with the Google search. It's using an API, so it's really easy. They also have YouTube as well in here. They have Amazon, they have Walmart, they have some more advanced ones that you can look into. The ones that I really needed that I couldn't find anywhere else that I wasn't able to scrape with Apify or Firecrawl are Yandex, which is a Russian search engine, and Baidu, which is a Chinese search engine. I was having a really hard time because those have very extreme bot protection, and I wasn't able to scrape it without using SerpAPI. So that's what I used here, and the results have been very, very good. Now, the other good thing is Serp and Firecrawl have a built-in caching system, so even if you ask for the same URL multiple times, it will be able to retrieve that very easily. So here's an example for Google, but again, it would be the same with Yandex, as I mentioned before. You would be able to put in your search query, where you want to load it from, and it essentially returns the JSON of every single piece of information, which you can then later on pass into the LLM directly. Now, a couple special mentions. Relevance AI is not technically a scraper. It is an agent builder, but they do have built-in scraping capabilities, specifically for Google and LinkedIn. If what you want to do is to actually scrape and summarize LinkedIn, Relevance is one way to do it. If you don't want to have to worry too much about integrating with different services, you can build one AI agent that does it all in one place. So you would pass in the URL or username, and it would retrieve the information that you need. So take a look at Relevance AI as well. Another one that is a special mention is PhantomBuster. I've really liked that one as well because this one is also extremely targeted. It can do a few things, but do it really, really well. So if you need to scrape LinkedIn, HubSpot, Instagram, but they also have Twitter, YouTube, Yellow Pages, there's or even Slack groups. So if you want something extremely narrow, you can look for PhantomBuster. It also allows you to find and scrape the leads from people that liked your post. So that's what it's mainly doing. And then last but not least, special mention for TestRigor. So this one is a bit more advanced. That's if you want to really do some advanced scraping of filling out some forms and go into a separate page and enter a specific keyword. That's what it can do in plain English, and it turns it into code for you, which is very nice, but it is very advanced. It's usually used for your own testing of your own website just to make sure everything is working without the complexity of coding, so anyone can do that. And then to integrate with N8N or Make, well, it's actually very easy. It's usually in the form of HTTP calls. I've done it in some of my previous video. I'm going to show it here. For example, with the lead scoring, you're able to pass in a specific prompt, and it will return exactly the information that you want from the scraping. So you can really do that easily. I'll link the video as well, so you could take a look at the end-to-end flow. I'll also put a link in the description where you can download a lot of prompt and templates to be able to do all of that. So overall, scraping can sometimes be a little boring, but there's a few things about scraping that can be a little boring that we really need to cover here, and that's really key to understanding scraping. The first one is rate limits. If you hammer really quickly things like Google or Reddit, it will probably block your IP. So that's going to be very interesting. You're going to come across rate limits very quickly. It's going to start returning 429 error codes, and you won't be able to scrape that anymore. So that will be a big part of your scraping journey. You will probably run into that. Just put some weights here and there. Don't go too crazy at once. Start with scraping one site well and then move on to the next one. In terms of Captcha, you might run into some Captchas because a lot of anti-scraping things have come up more and more. But from the tools that I shared, most of them you are able to bypass. Again, I was able to scrape 99% of the internet with Firecrawl. What I highly recommend is to set up a proxy. The proxy is essentially an IP that is not your home IP, so that in case the IP gets blocked, well, you can just generate another one. At home, it's much harder, and you don't want to have every single device in your home Wi-Fi to be blocked from using Google or anything like that. So consider using a proxies. There is a built-in proxy with Apify and Firecrawl, so keep that in mind. And then if you're using some advanced clicking, submitting forms, make sure to keep an eye on the CSS selectors. If the site changes their layout or the designer changes a few things in the code, it could break at any point. So you need to make sure you have proper alerting and proper logging to make sure that you won't run into a problem with that. So here are a couple tricks just to finish this up. So the first trick is the one that I actually enjoy the most. Firecrawl is not just a scraping platform, but you can actually pass in a specific prompt so that you can return specific information from the website. So you don't have to pass it into OpenAI later on in order to summarize or anything like that. So you can do, this is how to do that from N8N, for example. That's essentially what it's doing. So you can pass in the URL that you want to scrape. You have to pass in JSON in order to run the prompt. And then you can pass in either a system prompt or a regular prompt inside that directly. And so in that way, it will return only the company mission. And that's what you will see in here. You can even pass in a specific schema, which means a specific format that you want the JSON to be returned. So that's another way to do that. And that's the example of what it would return, right? So you can decide how many characters, you can really pass in whatever prompt. I've used it for more advanced things like grab all the URLs that you find inside the page, more advanced features that you want to be doing. You can summarize anything in the format that you want. The second trick that I use a lot as well, and I'm doing that in one of my scraping videos, you can actually run some actions directly on the page. So that's where it gets even more elevated, because sometimes you have to click on show more, sometimes you have to and log into the site in order to be able to see what you want to see. So you can actually do that, and you can run a series of wait and clicks with a specific selector. That's what I mentioned before. That's what could be breaking once in a while. So keep that in mind. It's rare. It can happen where developers will change that. So yeah, that's a really cool one, because it really allows you to extract a lot of information. I'll also link one of my videos where I'm doing that on Product Hunt, and I can show you a quick example of how that would work. The third trick that I think is a really game changer compared to other ones with Firecrawl is they have a stealth mode. That means if you're not able to scrape because there's an anti-bot sort of, you can actually put in a stealth mode or even auto, so that we'll try a basic one, and then if it doesn't work, it will try stealth and try to bypass all the advanced anti-bots. The only thing to know is that it will take 5 credits instead of 1 if you actually end up using stealth, but only if it works. So definitely a good one if you want to just make it work. Whatever happens, whatever technology they're using, you'll be able to scrape it. In some cases, it's also worth mentioning that Firecrawl will refuse to even initiate the scrape. That's the case that I noticed for Pinterest, just because it's just a consent thing. So Pinterest does not want to be scraped, and they are respecting that. So Firecrawl will not be able to do that. I've even spoken to them about it, and there's just not an option. But what you can do is you can actually use Apify for that. So Apify will use APIs under the hood or something similar, so you can actually scrape it. So keep in mind that you're not going to be able to scrape everything, but most sites will be able to be scraped. And then a really important trick is that depending on what you're trying to do, you might be wanting to scrape different search engines from different places in the world, see if you get different results. As of right now, you can use those proxies directly to load Firecrawl from, so you might be able to get different results based on that. They don't all support stealth mode, so keep that in mind. But it's I've used the US one a lot, of course. But if you want to really expand and try different things, if you can use any of this. This is part of the parameters that you pass in when you run Apify or Firecrawl. Apify has the same thing. I've mentioned this before, but one more thing to keep in mind is SerpAPI and Firecrawl both have caching built in The caching only works for Firecrawl if you do not have any actions, because actions can make the results different every time. So that's the reason why. So I highly recommend caching because you don't want to be scraping the same things over and over. SERP has a really good caching system. And the very last thing is, well, Cloudflare, I've said it before as well, Cloudflare has a mode that's called I'm under attack mode. So in that case, it will put in a challenge, and those ones you will not be able to scrape. You might be able to find something online, but truly the algorithm is changing every day. So it's very unlikely you'll be able to scrape anything here. So scraping is the secret weapon that lets AI go from we help companies like yours grow to congrats on your latest Series B. Here's how we helped another 200-person SaaS cut onboarding from 3 weeks to 5 days. Once you nail scraping in AI, your cold emails stop getting ignored. Your AI agents stop hallucinating. Your lead intelligence becomes a moat that no one else has. Some companies cut research time by 80% and reply rates go up 2-3x with scraping. So that's why it's really important. If you want my complete scraping in AI blueprint, I've put together a free guide with code samples, workflows, templates, tool setups, prompts, everything that I use with my clients. I put the link in the description. If this provided value, hit the thumbs up so I know to make more content like this. Drop a comment with the one source you love to scrape but haven't been able to yet. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.